All right, welcome everybody to the February 3rd, 2026 Arizona State Board of Pharmacy uh, Rules Task Force. I will call the meeting to order as the chair of the task force. Dr. Gandhi, if you can do roll call on conflicts of interest, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Walmsley,
Present, no conflicts.
Mr. Borg, Ms. Nair, Mr. Swartz. Mr. Pond indicated he wasn't going to attend. Ms. Howe,
Present, no conflicts.
Ms. Van Glom,
Present, no conflicts.
perfect. Mr. Boson, Mr. Morris,
Present, no conflicts.
Ms. Ulmer, Ms. Patel,
Present, no conflicts.
Mr. Al Nassif,
Here, no conflicts.
and Mr. Turner.
Present, no conflicts.
With 13 invites, 7 are present. We do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Terrific, thank you.
I'm sorry, we have Mr. Borg joining, so I'll mark him in attendance. He's in the waiting room.
Kevin, can you hear us?
Mr. Borg, are you?
I'm here, sorry.
Perfect. Okay, I'm marking you in attendance. We have 8 in attendance, Madam Chair.
Terrific. I will let you jump into where you want to start. Do we want to start with the fees piece and then move into the compounding after that?
Yes, let me give a recap a little bit. The fees, I don't believe there were no objections or public comment associated with the fees, so I don't know if we really need to dive into that, Madam Chair. If you're good, we can move into the compounding discussion.
All right, sounds great.
So, Madam Chair, a couple of years back, the board had gone back and forth about adopting USP and not adopting it, not adopting it. And there was a legal argument at that time about Title 41, where we had to adopt USP, and then we had to reference the exact site, location, date, and all that other stuff. What I've learned this year, the light bulb went on, monitoring some of the legislation that has happened, and I pulled up Title 41. And Title 41 is applicable to boards and agencies writing rules and regulations. It's not applicable to legislators. There are a couple of bills in play this legislative session that contemplates forward thinking about, like, for instance, MDMA, psilocybin, that if the DEA was to reschedule that to anything other than a one, prescribers in this state can prescribe it. That event hasn't happened yet. So the legislators are forward thinking that it could happen, and if it does happen, this is what could happen. So that got me to thinking, saying this Title 41 is not necessarily applicable to the legislators, as they can forward think and adopt future events that could take place. So 32-1901 under definition, number 64, does talk about the official compendium, and it means the latest revision of the United States Pharmacopoeia and the National Formulary or any current supplement, which means it's forward thinking in that definition itself. 32-1904, the powers and duties of the board. The board shall investigate compliance as to the quality labeling of all drugs, devices, poisons, or hazardous substances, and take action necessary to prevent the sale of these if they do not conform to the standards prescribed in this chapter, the official compendium, or the federal act. So again, it goes back to the definition where it's forward thinking. So the current version of 795, 797, 800, and possibly 825 is in play today for the board to inspect. 32-1963, liability of manager, proprietor, or pharmacist in charge of a pharmacy. Variances in quality of drugs or devices prohibited. A pharmacist or other persons shall not manufacture, compound, dispense, or offer for sale or cause to be manufactured, compounded, dispense, or offered for sale. I'm sorry. Let me share my screen so you guys can actually see. I
Yeah, I
apologize,
think
guys.
that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. I just again the light bulb went on a little late for me today too. But are you able to see my screen?
Yeah,
Yes.
got it now.
So I'm reading 32/1963 right now. For your reference, if you guys want to, you guys can take a look at what I've already read. That's highlighted right here. I'll just scroll up just a tad so you guys can review that as I read 32/1963. So no pharmacist or other person shall manufacture, compound, dispense, or offer for sale or cause to be manufactured, compounded, dispensed, or offered for sale any drug or device under or by a name recognized in the official compendium or the federal act which differs from the standard of strength, purity, and quality specified therein. And the rest of it is there, but just reinforces what I just read. Scrolling further down, 32/1966, act constituting adulteration of a drug or device. A drug or device shall be deemed adulterated if it is a drug, the name of which is recognized in the official compendium, and its strength differs from, or its quality or purity fails below the standard set forth in such compendium. So again, it goes back to the strength, purity, and the quality of the drug. 32/1967 talks about misbranding. And then I've incorporated in a document this, which is what I sent out, Title 41. And Title 41, again, just to reiterate what I stated earlier, is applicable to agencies and not the legislator. So what I concluded after researching all this, reviewing it, and then, of course, seeing what the legislators are doing, forward thinking on some bills, majority of 795, 797, 800, 825 is in play today. What's not in play is the venting component, like restructuring the pharmacy so that it vents outside and protecting the individual. These statutes strictly talk about the strength, purity, and quality of the product, which is majority of it, but not all of it. Does that make sense, everyone? And I do have Ms. Galvin and Allison on the line as representing our legal counsel, and Roger's here also. And if they support my argument, great. If not, I would love to hear other discussion around this.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from the attorneys that are on the call if they have any feedback.
Good morning. This is Jean Galvin. I will say that Cam and I had a discussion about this argument or his position previously, and without divulging attorney-client privileged information, I concluded that this is one interpretation.
Any other thoughts?
I'm fine with this interpretation.
Okay. So I'm
So-
gonna.
So given
go ahead.
that, what is your recommendation on where we go with the rules? Because it seems like we won't need as much of the rules, because then if there are changes, we won't have to kind of go back and redo it all, right? Is where your mind is going, right, Kim?
My mind is going there, but it also doesn't hurt to reiterate some of the facts that are in USP to avoid any confusion. I did, after I sent you a revision yesterday, I had more revision, unfortunately, between yesterday and today, just to clarify a few things. And if it's okay, I'll stop sharing this screen here and then pull up the other document for a discussion real quick. Give me a second to set it up. Let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Got it.
All right, perfect. So this is sort of the document I shared with you guys again yesterday. Again, there's no issues with the fees, so I'm going to move past that. Going into R423, 410, I did add a little bit to the amendment from yesterday, just to clarify some language here. So what I added was a licensed pharmacist, intern, or pharmacy technician working in Arizona under the supervision of a licensed pharmacist shall practice compounding only in a board permitted facility. Which means if a pharmacist in another jurisdiction their jurisdiction allows something different, then they can practice under those standards, right? So we don't want to impose our rules onto pharmacists in another jurisdiction outside of our state. Thus, I added this language. There is a greater discussion that needs to be had is how do we manage, and this is a future task force agenda item, how do we manage pharmacists, interns, technicians working in cancer centers and stuff like that, right? Which is not necessarily permitted by us, but that's going to be a future discussion. It may also include legislative adjustments as well, but we'll agendize that for a future date.
Hey, Cam,
Yep.
can we go back on A a second?
Yep.
So I think I apologize, I'm getting some feedback here. The working in Arizona, I'm sorry, the under the supervision of a licensed pharmacist is intended to apply only to pharmacy technician, correct?
Correct.
So shouldn't we move working in Arizona to after that?
Kind of right there, Roger?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that would make more sense. You want that licensed pharmacist in Arizona as well, I would assume. That's supervising.
And you said the concept of the oncology center, we're going to talk about in a different time period?
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
Are you guys good with this section?
I'm good with this, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
There was no adjustments to B and C. There was no public comment associated with that. So I didn't necessarily touch it. Yep, go ahead.
I have a question on B. So this is specific to 503A and 503B facilities. What about community pharmacy and hospitals when they do something simple like medical mouthwash?
So community pharmacies and hospital pharmacies are 503A by definition, if they're compounding
Okay.
per the federal law.
Okay.
Any pharmacy that compounds is automatically a 503A. Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, but
You're correct.
yeah.
Do we need to provide this level of detail around the references since it's because it's rule?
Unfortunately, Title 41 does require us to be this specific if we're going to
Okay.
implement a structural modification requirement, because I think everything else is covered in the statute. But if we're protecting the individuals that are making the compounds going forward, yeah, unfortunately, Title 41 requires us to have this detail.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I just want to make sure.
My only feedback is administrative. I'm not sure if you also want to link the USC link for 503A. I see USP and 503B, but you might need another URL here in section B1.
B1.
Yeah.
Can you send me that URL, Emily?
Yes, it usually takes me a little while to find things in USC. But I can get somebody to send that to me and then I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look at it, and if the committee here doesn't object, I can evaluate whether there's a need to put it in or not, and
For sure. Or
then
maybe
you
one
can-
of the lawyers has it handy, but I can find it for you.
That
Sure.
makes sense to me.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Right. So moving on to D. There was a lot of confusion with the ands or ors and all this other stuff, and it was brought to our attention that, you got to clarify this stuff. So we reshuffled it a little bit. And so D1, and it's recategorized A, B, C, and D, is all ors. So then you got ors in one section. So you got to have A or B or C or D, one of those requirements. And then if you have one of those requirements, then 2 in its entirety applies to that requirement. That's in 1. And this is what 2 is stating.
So Cam, I have a couple of possible suggestions here. 4 has an or in the middle of it. Do we want to break 4 in? I'm sorry, D has an or in the middle of it. Do we want to break it into D and E?
Certainly can, yeah. So E here,
Yeah.
okay.
And then I just wanted to confirm the second sentence of B, 2B, would allow the allergen extracts.
That is correct.
Okay.
And allergen extracts is normally are all inclusively compound by pharmacies, not necessarily 503Bs, right?
This is Mark.
Yep.
Chemically pure and high pharmaceutical grade, is that supposed to be an or? Because something can be chemically pure and not 99%. 99% would be high pharmaceutical grade, but you could have a activity adjustment that's less than 99. But it could still be chemically pure.
So change this to an or, is that what you're asking?
Or you could just say chemically pure. So it would also include high pharmaceutical grade.
Mark or Roger or Cam, chemically pure or high pharmaceutical grade, are those terms defined somewhere?
It's a good question. I think they are in the USP. I can find that reference.
Cam, could you scroll up a little bit, please?
Yep. Is that good right there?
I'm just, all of B.
Oh, scroll up. I'm sorry. Up this way or?
No, well, down, I guess.
Sorry.
Okay, thanks. So as a non-pharmacist, under D, you are specifying that all the substances, received, stored, used, and have to comply with A through E. But then you go to 2 and you say the pharmacist also has to ensure that they're chemically pure, high pharmaceutical grade, and then obtained from a source that in the professional judgment is reputable, reliable, and appropriate for the intended use. So does that allow a pharmacist to exercise their professional judgment, notwithstanding what is required in D1?
I don't interpret it that way. What I interpret B to require is in the clause above, those list the requirements for an active pharmaceutical ingredient, the drug itself. The other things, the excipients we use, water, fillers, other things are not going to be necessarily monographed or components of an FDA-approved drug, but all of the substances need to be obtained from a source that. So, for example, all of your flavorings aren't going to meet the requirements of number 1, but the pharmacist ought to, in their best professional judgment, ensure that they're acquired from a reputable and reliable source appropriate for compounding.
All right, thank you.
Mark, if we take out chemically pure, highly pharmaceutical grade is more specific to practice of pharmacy and medicine, right? Chemically pure is necessarily not.
Well, I worry about high pharmaceutical grade. And I'm looking up those definitions, and maybe we can go back to it. I'm logging into USP now. But high pharmaceutical grade is an exceptionally high standard, higher than pharmaceutical grade because it's got that qualifier in front of it. And we've never required that we use high pharmaceutical grade. I'd be okay with pharmaceutical grade. Let me look up the definitions of both, and that'll help people. We can come back to it.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble logging in here.
Okay. Yeah. If we want to come back, I'll just highlight it real quick so that we know we need to revisit it.
I just want to make sure I'm right, that high pharmaceutical grade means 99% or more.
Any other questions with the rest of this? Okay, if not, let's move forward and then we can backtrack to. So essential copy was another point of discussion during public comment. And I did, since yesterday, redline that one section and added something else for your consideration. So a pharmacist shall not compound a drug product that is essentially a copy of the FDA-approved commercially available drug unless the prescribing practitioner determines that the compounded drug produces a clinically significant difference for an identified individual patient based on a documented medical need and description of the intolerance to the commercially available product, or the drug appears on the FDA shortage list. And then I added, if a prescriber utilizes a pharmacy platform or pharmacy electronic system to transmit or enter a prescription, the documentation shall not consist solely of pre-populated selections. Default responses are standardized phrases and must include and individualized clinical rationale sufficient to support the prescription. Majority of this language is similar to the FDA language for essentially a copy. The addition was a concern brought to my attention. Any questions?
I have a question on the first paragraph. This verbiage, it says, unless the prescribing practitioner determines, etc. Will that move the responsibility from the compounding pharmacy to practitioner?
It is up to the practitioner to determine if a patient has severe allergic reaction to a commercially available product, or if it is just can't use it because of whatever ingredient is in there. And then they can compound it based on that, but that has to be justified through some sort of documentation saying Mr. Al-Nassif cannot take this because
RG or
yeah, exactly. Some sort of explanation, right?
okay, thank you.
I'm not the compounding expert on the line, Mark or Kevin. How long does it take for a drug to show up on the FDA shortage list? Is that the only source of truth, or are there like, I thought it takes a little while sometimes for drugs to show up there before they are really truly unavailable for purchase. Like, I'm thinking about things like Tamiflu that goes on short supply every year.
And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
it typically does take some time. We could be seeing it, locally, but it may not be on the FDA shortage list. Like estradiol patches right now are in shortage because of the black box warning. So I haven't looked at the FDA shortage list recently in terms of those, but they do typically take, it's not a quick process typically. And things will show up on the ASHP shortage list sometimes before the FDA shortage list.
you also don't, the other problem with the shortage list, both of them. It's interesting, California, as conservative as it is for compounding, allows the ASHP list or the FDA list. But even in those cases, what the game that I'm seeing the manufacturers and the FDA playing is they won't count something on allocation as in shortage. So this is still the case with the GLP-1s. If I wanted to buy 100 boxes of Zepbound 7.5, I couldn't. I'm allocated to it, but I've got 100 prescriptions to fill. So is that a shortage or not? And that's the challenge. That's the balance that compounders have to face every day. Is it may not be on the shortage list because it's on allocation, or the only people who can order them are hospitals, but it's available to hospitals. And so how do you handle the patients who can't get it at a community pharmacy? And the OIG, the FDA OIG will tell you send them to the hospital. And I just don't think that's good public policy.
Don't some states include the ASHP list also in addition to the FDA list?
I know California does. The new rules that they implemented in October included the ASHP list, and I thought that was remarkable for California.
Yeah, we had this discussion a number of years ago. I want to say maybe around 7 years ago, where there was a debate about ASHP versus FDA. And I think the discussion was that the FDA is a regulating body. ASHP is not necessarily a regulating body. So what is the board's position? Do you side with a regulating entity which has a similar mission, or do you side with ASHP that may have a different mission than the regulating body?
I just want to make sure that it's not impractical and that products don't become unavailable for patients because the FDA shortage list lags too far behind, or it's national versus regional. Because I'm pretty sure that Tamiflu is a good example of that happens almost every year. Like, it will become unavailable in a part of the country before it's unavailable in another part, and patients can't necessarily wait for it to hit the FDA shortage list. People are either going to be able to get treatment for it or they're not going to be able to get treatment for it. And if nobody can buy it, that's a problem.
Lori makes a good point, and the enforcement position, when I practiced, and it's been some time since I practiced full time, it was the pharmacy's burden to prove that it was unavailable to them. And if there's a way that you can codify that in rule, that would be nice. Because there are times you just can't buy it, but it's not on anybody's list yet.
I think the only challenge there is, I mean, we just had a recent situation before the board where a pharmacy had only a relationship with one vendor, one supplier. And then if that supplier can't provide it, then it's like, well, we've given our shot, we can't get it from our sole vendor, that we don't have contracts with anybody else. And here's our attempts. So is that sufficient enough for them to say, you know, we tried and now we're going to compound it?
Well, I would argue that you put the pharmacy between a rock and a hard place. Margins are razor thin, and the only way you can get good pricing, I'm not even going to say great pricing, but reasonable pricing, is if you sign a sole source contract with one of the big three. If you sign a sole source contract in order to keep your pharmacy alive, well, I don't think it's fair to burden them to say, well, you should have checked Cardinal and Bergen if you're McKesson sole source. You're asking the pharmacy that's already dying with reimbursement, and it's not just the independents, the big chains that aren't affiliated with other vertically integrated companies are struggling just as much on reimbursement. And no, you should. I don't think it's reasonable or a standard of care to expect a pharmacy to have access to all of the wholesalers.
I would just like to add also, Cam, like most of the time, wholesalers, when you have like the main contract, they only let like 10% to be ordered from different sources. So, and that make it difficult for pharmacies to seek ingredients or medication from all wholesalers in town or in state.
Yeah, I agree from a health system perspective. Even though we can maybe spend more to get a product, they put it on allocation. So even if we have other wholesalers we can reach out to, we wouldn't get it because they look at historical use. So it would be a bind. So I think if we can make it a more general, like if pharmacies can provide evidence to show that, you know, the drug isn't in short supply or on allocation. Because those are things too, because sometimes we can't meet the needs of our patients because the drugs are on allocation. So we may get some, but it's not enough to meet the needs of our patients.
And the allocation happens with the products that are in particular really fast moving, like back to the Tamiflu example, back to the GLP-1 example. Like there isn't a way for a pharmacy to buy it, even if they want to buy it, because the wholesalers won't sell it.
Yeah. And we have now current example about Bicillin, you know, it's been allocated and for a long time. So they
happens
don't
with vaccines. It happened during COVID with the antivirals, ivermectin, on and on and on. Like it happens anytime that there's a bigger demand for the product than the manufacturers were able to plan for.
Would that put us in conflict with the FDA position? Yeah, especially if there's interstate commerce of compounded drugs, shipping it across state lines, because it falls under then FDA jurisdiction. Would that be a problem? We may not take action, but are we setting up a pharmacy to fail with the federal law?
I don't know. That's a real concern, but the access for patients is also a real concern.
Kim and I don't know the answer to that question right now.
Can we do a little research around how other states address the same topic? because to Mark's point, I do know that he's correct about California, because there was a lot of discussion when California redid their rules about this very topic and whether or not the FDA shortage list was the only source of truth or should be the only source of truth.
Hi, Gene.
Yep, I can work on that, guys. Any other thoughts on this section?
I have a question on H2. I understand what the active pharmaceutical ingredient having the same strength. I don't know what similar or easily substitutable is. FDA has plus or minus 10%. I understand that.
So guys, if I go with this part, then I'll research the FDA shortage list, ASHP and stuff like that. Do we really need this part?
I don't think we do.
I think I think that was in the original language, but then the public comment I got is try to mirror what the FDA is saying so that you're not reinventing the wheel. And that's why you got the language above and you got the original language here below. But do we need the original language below? And seeing heads nod or shake and saying possibly not.
Don't think so.
Maybe this is already somewhere else. Do you need to define essentially a copy if you are using it in the blue text? Or is it just the FDA definition?
Really just an FDA definition. And I think in our statute says it shall comply with the FDA rules and regulations. So we already have that provision in the statute.
Because doesn't FDA talk about you can't use if 5 milligrams available and 10 is not, you could just use 2 5s. You can't make it 10 because it doesn't need to be compounded. 2 5s is easy enough.
Yeah, I think that's addressed. I think the challenge, if we're gonna expand like the FDA shortage list, include ASHP and other means, I don't even know if I could do a reference here, referencing back to the FDA for a central copy, because then we're changing it a little bit. Unless I stop it at FDA shortage, reference it, and then in addition, use other resources. That way incorporates the FDA exact verbiage as well as our additions. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not one of the attorneys on the call, but it seems like that might be good, just so that there is some like reference to ground that term that we're using. I don't know if others have feedback on that.
I like getting rid of the section that Cam just got rid of, the 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
You don't think that that adds some clarity?
I think it can, but I think we need to clarify the clarity then if we're going to keep it.
Spoken like a lawyer.
I think it may solve some issues if we do the reference to title to the FDA and then add additional language. Guys, are we okay with that?
So Cam, I apologize. Can you go backwards to section E? The question I have is the very last sentence. A pharmacist shall not add an ingredient to a pharmaceutical product that was compounded at another facility. And in particular, I'm concerned about, since 503Bs are allowed to sell to 503As, why can't the 503 add something else to it? 503As all the time add things to manufactured products. If we treat 503B products like manufactured products, shouldn't we be allowed to do that? And that's sort of the question I want to just talk about.
Maybe adding a 503A facility that excludes 503B.
That would work.
Okay.
Apologies. Just go back to the wording a second, Sam. Cam, you have the word another 503 at a. I think it's just at a 503A would work.
Should I add the word different 503A?
I just thought the word right there after at would work. Pharmacy shall not add an ingredient to a pharmaceutical product that was compounded at a 503A facility. Oh, I guess now okay. And I understand you're another now.
Yeah, I think
think
it
that
just
works better. I'm
clarifies
sorry.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think another works better. Yes. Okay.
All right. Scrolling down, there was no addition, well, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I have one other one after G.
You're gonna give me carpal tunnel syndrome here, Roger.
Sorry.
Sorry.
A pharmacist
Right.
permit or permittee 2 shall not advertise false or misleading info. That word's false or misleading info appear a ton of times in our statutes and rules. I have some interns with me right now. I have them going through and trying to identify every place in the statutes and rules where we say we're not allowed to do false or untrue or misleading stuff. I'd like to just see if we can get rid of it from all the sections and have a global pharmacists and pharmacies should not engage in false and misleading things once as compared to putting in a whole bunch of times.
It makes sense. It just adds redundant verbiage to our law book, right? Makes it a little bit longer. That's repeated over and over. And I think some time ago, Roger, you and I talked about even record keeping, right? So if we can consolidate that and have a central 7-year for everything or something like that, and just get rid of it throughout all the sections, statutes, and rules, it may cut down our law book by half. I'm exaggerating, but at least I'll get rid of some words, right? So.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Roger, for volunteering your interns.
Excellent use of resources and a good learning
Absolutely.
experience.
We'll look at the record keeping also.
And the only other change I had, let me make sure that's the only other change was the addition of this. When using an NIOSH list of hazardous drugs in healthcare settings, the pharmacy permittee shall ensure all Table 1 drugs are managed in accordance with USP 800, including application of contaminant containment controls and assessment of risk provisions where permitted by USP 800. It was listed somewhere in public comment about this.
I like the inclusion about the assessment of risk, because that's always a question. Can you do that?
Any concerns with that addition?
I just need just some clarity on this. So the most updated NIOSH list, I think they removed the table one and they put all medication in one table. This, as far as I remember.
I thought it was 2 tables now.
Yeah, thought it was
Not
two
3.
tables.
There used to
now?
be 3. There used to be 3. Now
Okay,
they cut it down to 2.
To 2. Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Borg or Mr. Bozen, the experts here.
I think you're right. It's
Yeah.
2 tables, and I think the statement's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So guys, I don't know if that's all inclusive of all the public comments. I did share that with you. But I captured as much as I thought was pertinent to our rules package here. But any other suggestions are welcome.
Kim, I don't have a suggestion. This is Truman, but I had a question in regards to the 503As ordering from a 503B for Mr. Morris, if I had a moment.
Sure.
In some examples I've seen out in the real, sometimes a 503A would order a GLP from a 503B and then remanipulate it in sterile conditions to add another GLP. In the example provided, where we are adding that conditional agreement that 503s can order from 503B and remanipulate, was that sort of the some of the intent of what you were proposing in that language update, or was it something different?
Your example is better than mine. I just wanted to add flavorants and some potential other things.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I'd have some, I guess, question marks if that would be, something safe or okay if we open up the language like that. But I see your point with making it intended for like flavoring or maybe like a reconstitutable, something like that,
Well, 503B should no longer be compounding GLP-1s and selling them to a 503A.
Okay, good point.
Well, that's GLP-1's a big word. There are still GLP-1s on the shortage list. Liraglutide would be an example.
So maybe if 503A orders one of those and adds, gets a prescription order for adding vitamins with this language update, make it okay or not okay. That was just my question.
I mean, that's a valid point. If you have a GLP-1 and then you're adding another GLP-1 to make a combination product, is that okay? I understand adding an inert ingredient such as flavoring to something, but another active ingredient. You're muted, Roger.
I'm just comparing the 503B to the manufacturer. We mix 2 cough syrups all the time for manufacturers. We call that compounding, right?
That's true. You do it with Miracle mouthwash. You mix lidocaine and
yeah.
To prevent the patient from having to take multiple injections. I mean, if that's what a physician wants, I don't know.
Okay. Mark, have you had a chance to look at Chemically Pure? And
I did. And it's interesting. I don't find either one of those words in my skim of USP. I do find pharmaceutical grade without the qualifier high pharmaceutical grade. Pharmaceutical grade are chemicals with a pharmaceutical grade that meet or exceed requirements of the National Pharmacopoeia, the most common pharmacopoeia USP, but these can also meet standards of the British, Japanese, European, and other pharmacopoeias. And so I also see ACS grade, FCC grade, lab grade, reagent grade, and technical grade. But they just describe pharmaceutical grade as USP, FDA approved as examples. So if they're USP compliant, they're a component of an FDA approved drug, then they're considered pharmaceutical grade.
My understanding of this, just quick query, was pharmaceutical grade is equal to or greater than 99%.
Well, so I Googled that to see where that came from. And you're right, if you Google that, but I can't find the source for that.
Yeah. But
But
chemically
let
pure.
me do a little more research on if there's other sections of the USP that will give this group some comfort. But I only see pharmaceutical grade. I don't see them use another. They don't differentiate between chemically pure. I don't see chemically pure. And I don't see high pharmaceutical grade. I can only find pharmaceutical grade, but I'll keep looking.
All right, so I'll keep that highlighted as yellow. I'll cross out chemically pure or of high for now. I'll leave pharmaceutical grade, but I'll wait to hear from you before I kind of finalize that section. Any other considerations, guys, or discussion topics on this rules package?
What wasn't there in that section that we were just discussing? I was just seeing it again. Wasn't there a comment about how it like mandates for human
Yeah,
use, but someone had talked about veterinarians?
there is a veterinarian section also, like in F here.
Okay.
A pharmacy permit or pharmacist shall not provide a compounded pharmaceutical product to a pharmacy, medical practitioner, or other person, unless the medical practitioner is a veterinarian who will administer a compounded pharmaceutical product to a patient of a veterinary med practitioner.
Versus the pharmaceutical grade section that we were just discussing. I think it said for human use. Unless we want to call that out somewhere. Like human use as appropriate or something. I'm not sure exactly how to phrase that. Wherever we just were with when Mark was talking about the chemically pure section. Yeah. Scroll up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, suitable for human use.
So what would you like? What are you proposing, Emily?
I'm just wondering if we need to qualify this somehow, that it needs to be suitable for human use when it's used in humans. Or if we can maybe clarify it in the veterinarian section below that they could use veterinary grade, animal grade products.
That makes sense to me, Emily. Either way.
Yeah, however it works better from like a language perspective. It just might, I feel like someone wrote that in a comment. They were like, oh, it says like everything needs to be for human use, when that might not be the actual case.
So I'm not the expert on the veterinary products, but what is the difference between pharmaceutical grade for humans versus veterinarian? How much variance?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. But they are separate grades, right? Like, isn't it like
There are
okay.
things that are specifically labeled as veterinary grade, not to be used in humans. So my gut would say it's probably a lesser quality, but you can use human grade in veterinary products, but you can't use veterinary grade in human products. So I think there's a I don't want to call it a lack of quality, but maybe a lesser quality, or just things that are just labeled specifically veterinary use only.
Kevin, are there certain products that might only be available as veterinary grade? So if we aren't explicit that veterinary grade would be appropriate for for these veterinary compounds, that maybe there wouldn't even be a source for the product?
Yeah, there are some, but where there's been issues in the past that the board has talked about is ivermectin, back during
Yeah.
COVID.
Yep.
There are a few like DES, I think diethylstilbestrol is one of them, I believe that's labeled veterinary use only. You don't use that in humans anyway. There are a few others, but I think there are ivermectin's the one that's coming to my mind right now that
Right.
is, both has been labeled both ways.
And that makes sense that we would only want to use the human grade product in humans, but we don't want to limit it if there isn't a product available for somebody that might only do veterinary compounding,
Yeah.
especially if that's the standard of care.
When we talk about humans and animals, should we talk about teenager grade? Because they're not really humans. All right, I'll try to work in somewhere in here about veterinary grade. Is that the correct terminology?
I thought it was animal grade.
Animal grade?
But I would leave that to others.
Actually, I think I like the word veterinary better because when we see it, it's labeled as veterinary grade, not animal grade.
I think it might be in USP too, right? Like when it's talking about excipients,
Yeah.
like how to decide the right excipient.
So Cam, are you looking for any more questions on any of this, the 410?
I'm sorry,
Are
Roger?
you looking for any more questions on 410 at all?
Just input from you guys. The next step is I'll modify what I need to modify, get Mark's input a little bit, and then present it to the board at the April meeting.
So can we go back to A then? Because I've had some discussions with the board about this in Call to the Public in the past, and I just want to make sure we're clear on what we're doing in A. The last sentence of A, basically, if I'm reading the last sentence correctly, will prohibit pharmacists, techs, and interns from compounding in any setting in the state of Arizona that is not licensed by the Arizona Board of Pharmacy. That's what we're
Correct.
saying in A, right?
Yeah.
And right now, we know today there are people by education and licensure who are pharmacists and technicians at least, who are engaged in compounding in doctors' offices and oncology clinics and the like. So this would make that illegal for them. And that would mean if those doctors and clinics, which are not under the board's jurisdiction, I understand, continue compounding, this will make it less safe, in my opinion, for the public.
So we have had this discussion before, and this is where it kind of gets really gray, right? I mean, these cancer clinics are renaming these trained compounders to call them admixture technicians versus pharmacy technician. And with that, I think the board was okay with that because then they're using a different title. They're not leveraging they shouldn't be leveraging their pharmacy technician license to independently compound under the supervision of a physician. If they set aside their pharmacy technician, they still have it, but they're not utilizing it for that purpose and have a different title. I think the board determined that's okay practice because that's under the medical practitioner's jurisdiction.
So can a pharmacist do that without their title then? I'm just trying to be clear for the people out here. Again, my position is, and I understand this would be a statutory change, I'd like to see all of this, all dispensing under the jurisdiction of the Board of Pharmacy. But I understand that's not the law today.
Yeah, that is going to be a bigger discussion on how we're going to pursue that. I know the current makeup of the legislative body is not into expanding authority of the boards at this moment, but there is a huge concern about public safety when it comes to that.
And especially since these are oncology products, they're very high risk. And so we really want pharmacist oversight, whether even reviewing orders, right, for these physician-based clinics. I get it, we have a workaround with the technician working in these spaces, but we really also need pharmacists to review those orders from the physicians as well. So, I mean, I know this is a topic for later discussion, but we should probably look at that because we have a lot of that happening in the state of Arizona, you know.
Yeah, as far as providing cognitive services like reviewing orders and feedback and drug interactions and all this other cognitive services, I don't think we necessarily have heartburn with that. It's compounding in an unapproved location, right, where we don't have visibility into that product. We don't know if there's contaminants, adulterated product, whatever, and where they're buying it from as well. We don't know any of that. And then on top of all that, you're talking about chemo drugs. How are they even making it? Is it vented properly? Are the people making it exposed to this stuff and then having long-term complications eventually? That's a huge blind spot for us, right? So
100%.
Yeah. I mean, that's why USP 800 was created, is to protect people. And if they're not working in an environment where they're protected or wearing the proper garb and the proper environment where they are being protected, that's a problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Roger, you just threw a grenade in the room, and that is a good topic.
Well,
Roger's always good for that.
Well, and again, what we're trying to do is public health and safety. Again,
Absolutely.
I think that the gold standard is to get this under the jurisdiction of the board and change all dispensing, or at least change the oncology compounding to do it. And Cam, you and I even talked about, is there a way to have these facilities do it voluntarily, like the pharmacies on Native American land? To be able to do it, because yes, they should be in compliance with 800 and 797 for all their compounding. And the part that's weird is they're required to comply with these statutes and rules. It's just nobody enforces them, because the medical board and the DO board, they adopt these rules in whole.
They do. And again, they only pursue it if there's a complaint, and who's really going to complain? I think Mr. Turner's on a call here with us, and maybe he and I can partner in tackling some of the legislators and addressing the huge concern that we have out there as far as public safety goes. Maybe we can leverage each other to kind of get that authority for the Board of Pharmacy.
Yeah, I mean, I know in some states, and this is way bigger than this call, some states, the board has jurisdiction over prescriber dispensing through a license. Like they have to have licensed and follow the same labeling and facility requirements and all those kinds of things.
Well, one of the recommendations from the Auditor General was for the Board of Pharmacy to issue a controlled substance registration, so that we have authority of them checking the PMP, maybe even have the ability to inspect them, because physician prescribers, nurse practitioners, all those other healthcare professionals are not immune to addiction, right? So are they monitoring those things accurately and tracking and destroying and returning whatever they're doing with it? That was their recommendation. Again, right now, I don't think the legislators have an appetite for us to expand in that scope yet, but
yeah.
So this document, for the most part, with some modifications that I'll work on between now and the April board meeting. Are we good with that?
I think Garrett had his hand up.
Yeah, Garrett.
No, I wasn't raising my hand. I was just giving the thumbs up to say, yes, I can work on that with you, Cam.
Perfect.
So Cam, assuming the board approves this in April, it goes through GERC and everything else, this could become law later this year?
If the board approves it in April, yes. I mean, these are not significant changes. These are public comment, went through twice already. The board could direct me to move to public comment one more time if they choose, but I don't, knowing that majority of USP is already enforceable in statute, I don't think it necessarily needs to go to public. That's just my opinion alone. But yes, if the board approves it in April, we'll put in request for GERC after I get final approval from the governor's office. That could take a little time. And then GERC approves it in 60 days after that. So yeah, it could be by December of 2035, I guess. No, I'm hoping by the end of this year, Roger. It's just, this has been in the works for a long time. USP's been in discussion for years. And I think it's come to a crossroads where I think we have to make a decision.
No, I agree. My concern is then that means we're going to pull the pharmacists out of oncology facilities this year, and that without a solution other than docs, we hope you're better.
Which is a fair point, Roger. You don't think these are substantive enough that we would need to take this for public comment again, Cam? I feel like they probably are.
That would be the board's discussion, and then they could direct me to do that.
Thoughts from the group? Should we put this out for comment again? Or is everybody comfortable enough with where we're at? As one of the two board members on the call, this is your chance to give me your feedback if you think we need to go out for a public comment. I'll be one vote, but I would appreciate your thoughts.
I'm honestly fine either way with it.
What's the bar? Is it like, how is it phrased as to what requires comment? Does it literally just say non-substantial? Like, what?
It depends on if we've addressed their concerns in public comment, right? So if we have addressed majority of their concerns, and I think majority of it may already be addressed in the statutes. And then if the others we're not addressing, then we document that we're not addressing. We've addressed what we thought was significant, and we're not addressing the rest, and we're moving it forward. We're never going to get consensus. We're always going to get public comments. So you got to keep that in mind. And so that we just keep moving and kicking the can down the road is the question.
But Cam,
Yep.
Under your final rules can't be substantially different than your proposed rules. And if they are substantially different, then you're required to back up the process. So we'll have to keep that in mind and look at that a little bit.
Okay.
This is just my 2 seconds. I don't think these are substantially different than what we looked at before. I think we cleaned up stuff. I don't agree with some of it with sub A, but I don't think it's substantially different.
Any other comments, guys, before we close out this session? All right, going once, twice. Forever hold your peace. Well, guys, thank you again for jumping on this call with me. I know this is a huge undertaking by all of us, and I'm sure we pulled our last nerve on this topic as well. But thank you again for your support and input, and hopefully we have a product that everybody can live with.
Yep, appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for your work. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned, guys.